Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Stag by Hildie Mcqueen, narrated by Mhairi Morrison. Spring 1603. Chapter 1. Artair Ross leaned forward, his elbows on the table, as he listened to his father talk about what happened with the people in the surrounding lands. By contrast, across from him, his younger brother Bryce sat back, arms crossed, with the sullen expression of boredom. Despite his recent ailments, their father was robust and full of energy as he spoke, his voice strong to ensure they listened. "Both of ye will follow in my footsteps. We have farmland and several families who depend on us." His hazel gaze moved from Artair to Bryce. "As of late, both of ye have barely been in the same room together. I need to know ye are going to be united once I am gone." At the last words, Bryce straightened. "Ye should stop speaking as if you're on your deathbed, Da. Ye are not?" Their father's right eyebrow hitched. "A month ago, I almost died. It made me realize there is much that needs to be done." "Da," Artair began, "ye have taught us well. We are well aware of what our duties are." "Is that so?" Angus Ross gave him a pointed look. "Tell me which farmer is having trouble with his fields? Who has the most goats and cows?" "McConnell has the most livestock," Bryce replied with a triumphant look in Artair's direction. "I rode past Burton's lands the other day. His plantings were brown." Angus shook his head and let out a sigh. "McConnell died 2 years ago. Burton is no longer farming. He and his wife went to Barra to live with their son." How had he missed so much? Artair and Bryce exchanged surprised looks. "Ye have been here," Artair told his brother. "No excuse not to know." Artair then spoke to his father. "I work for the Laird. You know my duties have taken me away for the last years. I have always made it a point to come here every fortnight or so to ensure ye are well." "I am not pointing fault at either of ye," their father assured. "What was of note is that neither of ye are well aware of what happens, and if I had died tomorrow, your mother and the families depending on us would need one of you, if not both, here." The brothers exchanged looks, and immediately Artair knew his brother had no plan to help. Bryce rarely intended to do more than pass each day doing as little as possible. His brother preferred the life of leisure, rarely lifting more than a quill, and spent his days with his nose in parchment, writing. For years his father and brother had argued and fought over it, but despite any threats or demands, their mother always came to Bryce's defence. He was coddled and refused to change. "I will ask Darach to reassign me to the southern post," he said, referring to his cousin and Laird, Artair Ross. "It will enable me to come home more often to spend time with you. Living closer will also afford me the opportunity to fulfill both my duties." His father brightened. "That is a splendid idea." Both looked to Bryce, who'd resumed his previous position and expression of disinterest. He let out a long sigh. "I believe to have gotten Isla Quinn with child. I have to consider what to do." Artair couldn't hold back the bark of laughter. "How did you manage that much energy?" Despite the stern look, he could see humour in his father's eyes. "Ye will do right by the lass and marry her," Marry? Bryce sat up, straight as a rod. Marry her? That is what I said. Your mother will invite the family for a meal to formally announce the engagement. I urge you to go in search of the lass and let her know. His father's direct gaze left no room for argument. Do not defy me on this. Ye will have to be more responsible now. Of course, ye use this as an opportunity to make me work. There is absolutely nothing that interests me about farming or goats. Tired of his brother's laziness, Artair rounded the table and grabbed Bryce's tunic, hauling him to his feet. What do ye intend to do? Have a bastard-born bairn running about while ye spend your life doing nothing more than picking flowers? Bryce shoved him back. Ye know nothing. He stood and stormed from the room. What did he mean by that? Artair asked. He claims to feel the need to write and do nothing else, their father replied, looking in the direction his youngest son had gone. Your brother refuses to grow up. Perhaps you should take him with you on your next guard duty. He needs to experience more than being a pampered idiot. By last meal, Bryce acted as if all was well. Their mother spoke at length about the spring festival in the village that she was helping with. Along with her companion, Bettina, she spent most days riding back and forth to the village, meeting with other women to plan. It kept her occupied and, from her bright smile as she spoke, happy. She met Artair's gaze. I am so glad that ye will be spending more time here. I worry about your da. He needs to rest more. Artair bit his tongue to keep from pointing out that Bryce lived there and should have been made to help. Instead, he slid a look to his brother, who ate with gusto, seeming to have forgotten the earlier discussion. Mother, I am going to be working at the southern post, which is less than half a day's ride from here. I will let Darach know that I will be dividing my time between my duties as guard and here. I am sure he will have no problem with allowing it. Why are you asking him for permission? Bryce asked, a bitter edge to his words. He is father's nephew. Therefore, anything to do with Da should be done without having to bow down to him. This time, it took more strength to keep from yanking his brother across the table. Because I have declared my loyalty to his station as Laird of our clan, Bryce. Like a petulant lad, Bryce rolled his eyes. I am also asking that ye be allowed to join the guard force for a while. Ye will come with me to help with the guarding of the southern shore. It will make it easier for me to leave and come here. When Bryce choked on his food and coughed until his face turned a deep red, a tendril of satisfaction travelled through Artair. A guard? Their mother asked, then stopped speaking when her husband gave her a stern look. Aye, Iona, his father said. I think it will be good for our son to see what it is like to protect one's home. What about the Quinns? Bryce finally managed to sputter. I thought we were to have them for a meal. The Quinns? Their mother asked, looking from the still red-faced Bryce to her husband. What about the Quinns? Angus waved his hand dismissively. Bryce thinks to have gotten Isla Quinn with child. The incredulous look on their mother's face was what Artair figured his own had been like. When did this happen? Bryce shrugged. We have been meeting since a few months ago. She only discovered it recently. I will speak to her mother and find out more. Their mother glared at Bryce. It best not be true, or I will pull every hair out of your head. Isla is a sweet girl. How could you, Bryce? When her eyes became shiny with unshed tears, Artair felt badly. Their mother had always been overly sensitive. There, Iona, their father said in a gruff voice. He hated seeing his wife upset. I am sure this will all work itself out. 2 days later, both families sat at the same table in uncomfortable, stilted silence. Isla was, as his mother described, pretty and sweet and, obviously, mortified. Her father was enraged, her mother embarrassed. To Artair's shock, Bryce took full responsibility and barely flinched when her father threatened to kill him. The wedding would be within a fortnight to ensure Isla's extended family would not suspect the pregnancy. After the meal, Bryce strolled into the study, where Artair and his father looked over the ledgers. I suppose this means I must remain behind and ensure all is well with my bride. Their father stood, rounded the table, and shoved Bryce backward. He fell into a chair and looked up at their father, wide-eyed. Ye will go with your brother. Ye will return for the wedding. Remain 3 days, and then return to your duties at the southern post. This does not give you any kind of reprieve, but instead makes it doubly important that ye do something to make your wife and bairn proud. Artair wanted to groan. The last thing he wanted was his annoying and unskilled brother along when the southern post was currently one of the most dangerous assignments. His duties and life had just become much too complicated. Chapter 2. One of the guards, John, is dead. The other barely survived. Struan McLean, a Clan Ross warrior, reported, his hard gaze shifting from Artair to the surrounding. The muscular man rolled his shoulders in frustration. I do not know how the attackers got past us. The salty air filled Artair's lungs as he scanned the area. He'd only arrived back at the tiny village of Ternsby just a few days earlier. Since then, he and several men had ridden out to search for the attackers. They'd arrived at an area that was thick with forest. They'd ridden from Ternsby past a tiny fishing village and on forward up an incline following horse tracks. They must be camped out in the forest. Artair blew out an annoyed breath. They'd been tracking a group of men without result. We must find them and make them pay, Artair said, his tone dripping with rage. The guards had been attacked without provocation, according to the one who'd survived. It meant whoever did it was either mad or had a death wish. They had to be aware Clan Ross had a huge army and that they'd be tracked down and punished. I'll go west, past the forest, he said, motioning to the other men. Ye and ye, come with me. He then looked to the 4 that waited instructions. Among them, Bryce, who looked to be in pain. Probably not used to riding for so many days in a row. Go in that direction. Find a way to get up there on the hill. Be with care, he instructed the other men. Looking to Bryce, he motioned to the others. Keep my brother alive. His lips twitched. If you can. I can always ride back to the guard post. This is an utter waste of time, Bryce replied with a sneer. The guards gave Artair a look, telling him they'd prefer he do just that. Climbing the hilly area, they took their time, stopping often to study the surroundings and ensuring not to miss any signs of where the men headed. It was painstakingly slow progress, but experience had taught him it was an effective way to track. Sunrays broke through the trees, giving only a bit of warmth. In the shadows of the forest, The cool breeze fanned across. Artair pulled his tartan up, wrapping it around his shoulders, and noticed his companions had done the same. His horse, Hagar, a black beauty, trotted with ease down the path. The animal, like him, did not take kindly to remaining in one place too long, preferring to be led toward unknown territory and unfamiliar lands. The beast snorted and bobbed its head, usually a sign that it sensed or heard something. Holding up a hand, he signaled for the others to stop. Taking in the surroundings, Artair realized how different the area was from the opposite shore. It was untamed and wild, patches of trees and vegetation that made for plenty of places for both beasts and men to hide. "What do you think?" he asked Struan, who studied the ground. "New path there?" The man pointed to their left. "Old path there." He motioned directly ahead. Another warrior came up and dismounted. The man walked to the new path, kneeled, and touched the ground. Then he looked up to the trees. He walked back. A group of men on horseback rode through here. At least 6 horses. Eric Larson was a master tracker and someone Artair trusted without reservation. The Norseman had arrived several years earlier, asking for work. The late Laird had eagerly accepted, claiming to need someone who spoke the language for whenever he decided to fight the Norse. Despite having to fight to be accepted, Eric was now accepted by the others without reserve. He'd proven to be a brave warrior and extremely loyal to the clan. "I think we need to gather more men and return," Struan said, his dark gaze narrowing. "I agree," Artair said, blowing out an annoyed breath. "Hopefully they will consider themselves safe and remain here." It would be dangerous to go further, as they were not aware of how many attackers there were. Turning the horses around, they rode back in the direction they came. After Eric rode off toward the guardhouse to gather additional men, Artair and Struan went to the village. Rather than go all the way back to the post, they decided to stay closer and keep an eye out for anyone of note. Tairnsby was picturesque. Like most seaside villages, cottages lined the higher ground, with smaller shacks closer to the water. Boats bobbed on the water, from which fishermen tossed nets. The 2 men rode down the center of the buildings until finding the village square and then dismounted. Struan scanned the area, his gaze flat, no doubt looking for any signs of men who looked to not fit in. It was early yet in the day, so there were plenty of people about. Artair walked to a stand where a couple roasted meat and waited patiently for them to serve several in front of him. When it was his turn, he asked for roasted lamb and flatbread, then went to sit on a nearby bench to eat. Struan came and sat next to him, and both ate in silence. "Where do you plan to settle?" Artair asked the man who'd recently moved to the Isle since leaving his home on Skye. Struan shrugged. "I have no plans other than to remain in service to the Laird and, perhaps over time, come to a place like this and decide to remain." "Not for some time, I gather?" Artair wasn't sure why he asked, other than his father's request weighed heavy on his mind. He'd not considered that upon his father's death he would be tied to the land and house there. For whatever reason, he'd grown more restless over time, the opposite of where he should be mentally. "No, not for some time," Struan replied and gave him a curious look. "Ye?" Struan asked, his gaze returning to scanning the surroundings. "My father expects that I will live at our family home, on family lands." It was not an answer, more a statement of what his future held. Certainly, he had no choice but to honour his father's request. "Ah, family," Struan said. "Interesting. How they plan for us what they did, expecting that we should want the same. My father was quite ill recently. I suppose it made him consider what he wishes and requires of me." They finished their food in silence. "I am going to ask around in the tavern," Struan said. "Ask for 2 rooms," Artair called out, as the sun would set soon, and he did not expect them to head back out to search with the larger number of guards until the following morning. They went in opposite directions. Artair stowed the horses for the night and spoke to the stable master, who claimed to have seen several new faces of late. The man narrowed his eyes in the direction of the hillside where Artair had been. No good. They were harbingers of death. "We will ensure to stop them," Artair said, and the man nodded. "Good." Just then, a young boy sprinted to the same stand he'd bought meat, grabbed a huge slab and raced away. The couple didn't notice they'd been robbed and remained talking to a group making a purchase. Narrowing his eyes, Artair followed after the boy. He looked familiar. The boy hurried past several buildings before darting between 2. Following at a distance, Artair noted that the boy didn't bother looking back. Instead, he slowed as he arrived at a cottage. The lad had to be held responsible for what he did. Yes, the boy was still young, and perhaps having fun. At the same time, he would grow up stealing if allowed to get away with it. Artair neared the cottage, alert to his surroundings. The last thing he needed was for someone to attack while he was on a silly quest of chasing a wayward lad. It was quiet. The only sound were birds in the nearby trees. Even as he approached the door, there were no voices or sounds coming from inside. Artair went to a window and peered in through the shutter slats. The boy sat at a table, carefully cutting the meat. He then placed some on a plate and covered it with a cloth. The interior was clean and tidy. Now that he considered it, the boy's clothes were well made and clean, which should be an indicator that he was not so poor that he had to steal for his meals. Unless the boy lived alone. Artair turned away, not sure what to do next. He had more important things to worry about at the moment. He would return on horseback and speak to the boy and his parents. Whatever the situation was, the clan would help. "What are you doing?" A woman's voice startled him. So much for staying alert. Artair whirled around and came face to face with a young brunette. She was perhaps 5 years younger than his 32, very pretty, and had the wary look of a wild doe caught by surprise. Her wide, expressive brown eyes looked over him, lingering on his right shoulder, where the hilt of his sword was visible. She held a basket filled with vegetables in one hand, and with the other, 2 fish on a string. Her gaze flitted to the front door. "Go away, please." This time, her voice shook with what he thought was either nervousness or fear. "We do not have anything for you to take." Artair let out a grunt. "I am not the thief." Once again, her eyes widened, and she looked to the door. "Oh no, please, I will pay you for whatever he took." "He took roasted lamb from the village square." Artair stopped talking, trying to reconstruct his sentence better. "Ye sell lamb?" She looked over her shoulder. "What happened to the millers?" "I do not sell lamb. I was eating it." "He took your lamb." Her shoulders fell, but at the same time she did not relax. "Please, take these." She held out the fish. "I am so sorry. He must have gotten hungry, waiting for me. Why was he doing such a horrible job of explaining himself? Artair pressed his lips together. Ye do not remember me, then? Perhaps because I am wearing clothes and not astride my horse. If possible, her eyes widened further, and she took a step back. Oh, dear. Your boy is a menace. First he steals my clothes, and now he takes food from unsuspecting people. You must punish him. Several months earlier, while on patrol, Artair had decided to soak in the chilled waters of a nearby loch. His right leg had been bothering him, and the cold water seemed to help. While bathing, the same boy had stolen his clothes. In the end, he'd had to ride after him, fully nude, to demand his clothes back. It had been the first time he'd met the beauty, whom he'd not forgotten. Obviously, he'd not made as much of an impression. She took a step forward, then put the basket down and plopped the fish atop. What would you have me do? Draw and quarter him? He is an energetic boy, aye, but also a good one. I will speak to the millers. While speaking, her hands formed fists, as if she was ready to battle hand to hand with him. Artair gave her a droll look. I will return. This matter is not over. Right now, I have more important things to do. Obviously, you do not. She hitched her chin and glared at him. It is not safe for you to be out here alone. You should ensure your husband accompanies you back and forth to the village. Several of my guardsmen were attacked recently. With her basket in hand, she gave him a subtle nod and walked toward the cottage, giving him wide berth. I will inform him. Chapter 3. Robena Mackay hurried inside and bolted the door behind her. Then, placing the basket on the floor, hurried to the window. The man walked away, his gait strong and assured, the huge sword strapped to his back, a clear giveaway that he was a warrior. He'd not told her his name, and after meeting him for the second time, both under bad circumstances, she wasn't sure to want to know it. What did you bring? Ye took food from the millers. She made a point to look at her son directly. Why? Finn was a smart lad, and he was wily, always up to some mischief or another. Quick to help others, he also loved the challenge of taking things without being caught. Come along. Robena motioned to the door. The boy's eyes widened. Where are we going? To speak to the millers. Ye will tell them what ye did and offer to repay them. I have no coin, neither do ye. She pushed him gently toward the door, and they went out. And yet I find a way to bring food home and ensure we have all we need. I work and offer to do tasks in exchange. Ignoring her growling stomach, she walked to the village, her sulking son seeming to walk slower and slower until she took his arm. I am hungry and tired. I've spent the day working. I am not in the mood for you to act like this. The millers were understanding, and upon Robena insisting Finn repay them with work, they asked that he return the following day and work at their stand. Finn became excited at the idea of it, a wide grin stretching across his face. A familiar figure appeared, and Robena's stomach tightened. The older woman's cold gaze travelled over her, and then flitted to Finn, and instantly softened. Why have you not brought Finn to visit? The woman stated. I have every right to spend time with my grandson. Robena had never understood why her mother-in-law hated her. For years she'd done her best to ingratiate herself to the woman. But, like her deceased husband, she'd been sternly against any kind of interaction that did not involve pointing out everything Robena did wrong. I will...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?